the forecasting was atrocious. You could literally download your live account data, put that keyword data into the forecast tool, and you just not get the same results, not even close. To be fair to Google, now the forecasting tool is vastly improved.
Hello and welcome to the Paid Media Lab podcast. My name is James. I'm the content lead here at Lunio, and in this episode, I'm joined by Ed Leake, the founder and creator of God Tier Ads. Ed's been doing internet stuff since 1996. He was among the first to own a domain name and monetize a website. Fast forward a few decades, he is now a seasoned agency owner, PPC nerd, an ad tech builder, and he's also managed over $500 million in ad spend over those years. Alongside running his own agency called Midas Media and launching platforms like Ad Evolver, Ed's current focus is on building and growing God Tier Ads, his own tried and tested frameworks for managing Google Ads accounts more effectively, which have built up a really solid reputation amongst those in the PPC industry. As a matter of fact, some of the previous guests on this podcast have access to God Tier Ads, and they've told me that they found it a very useful resource at different points throughout their career. In this episode, we dig into the art of forecasting Google Ads performance more effectively. Ed walks us through the logic behind his free forecasting spreadsheet, which you can download via the link in the episode description. And you can also check out all the other free resources that Ed's got available there too. We also get into why Google's inbuilt forecasting tools often fall short, the most common things marketers fail to account for when doing their own manual forecasting, and how to keep spend under control if you're dealing with some very high CPC keywords in your account. Along the way, we also chat about the power of polarizing ad copy, why standard shopping still holds its own against Performance Max, and the problems with trying to take shortcuts and hack your way to PPC mastery, which just isn't possible regardless of what some dodgy online gurus might tell you. I had a really great time chatting with Ed, and I hope you enjoy this episode too. Ed Leake, welcome to the Paid Media Lab. It's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, James.
One of the first things that jumped out at me when looking at some of your work online was the quality of the copy. As a writer myself and coming from a background in content, I like to think that I've got a good eye for that kind of thing. I may not, but I did notice that your copy is very concise, human, has a lot of personality, and I just wanted to know up front, like, is that something that you consciously worked on over the years and developed that skill? And yeah, how did you approach getting better at copywriting?
I unworked it. So, okay, because I've been in this industry for nearly 15 years-ish, obviously I tried very hard when I learnt about copywriting to do copywriting, conversion optimization style copywriting. And I guess the more experienced, the more comfortable I got in my own skin, and therefore the more arrogant, the more I reverted to just being me. So I literally type as I would speak, and my mannerisms come across. And I just take the view that if you don't like it, there's plenty of other people out there. So you either like me or don't like me. I'm wearing a grey t-shirt, but I would not want someone to think I'm grey. I want them to either engage with it or just walk away. I don't want them to completely miss me because I've got no tone or charisma in my writing. But it's just, yeah, it's literally how I talk. I mean, I could literally talk to my phone, record it, and put that as a blog, letter, whatever.
No, it comes across really well, and I think you're right in that, like, you want some kind of reaction out of your audience, like some reaction, whether it's negative or positive, like that. You know, the people that it's not right for, they're going to go away, and the people that do resonate with it, you know, that's the right kind of people to be speaking to.
Don't be scared of the haters.
Yeah. The main focus for our conversation is all about the art of forecasting Google Ads performance more accurately. And before we go any further, I just want to encourage everyone listening to check out the video or episode description for the link from Ed that we've included from there, which will pair very nicely with the episode and make it immediately actionable. So you'll see quite a few free resources that Ed's got available on his site, and you'll also be able to download a copy of his Google Ads forecasting sheet. He's also got a video tutorial where Ed breaks down the steps that you need to follow to input all the correct data and make the most of it. And when you do, you'll be able to accurately forecast the results of your Google Ads campaigns without having to spend a lot of money to get that data in the first place. And in this conversation, we're going to explore some of the core principles and mechanisms that went into the creation of that forecasting sheet, which make it a more reliable predictor of future performance than Google's own forecasting tools. So on that note, Ed, let's start off with discussing some of the problems with Google's own forecasting and what you see are some of the main misconceptions advertisers have when referring to those tools.
Yeah, we've tackled probably the most boring topic, projections and forecasting, and I'm sure a lot of advertisers and marketers have turned off already, but it's super critical. It's really critical at the point of taking on a new client. That's why I built this template sheet in the first place and did a video. To be fair, the video is a bit old, but it still explains the sheet perfectly well. And also, to be fair to Google, now the forecasting tool is vastly improved. So when I built this sheet, I don't know how many years ago, the forecasting was atrocious. You could literally download your live account data, put that keyword data into the forecast tool, and you just not get the same results, not even close. Not spend, not impression. It's just weird. I'm like, but Google, it's your data. And it frustrated the hell out of me because clients would, particularly new clients and e-com clients, they'd be like, oh, we need to do some projections for Q4. Or a new client would be like, right, I've got 10 grand a month to spend. What can I get? We've all been in that situation. You know, clients are like, what can we get? Instead of guessing or rummaging around for numbers, and unless you've got experience of that specific industry and you know roughly where to be, this is where the projection sheet came into being. And it's really simple. You put your keyword, you do your keyword research, you download that CSV, and then you paste it into the sheet. And then where it gets a bit more advanced or more specific, should I say, to your business, your client, is that you can put all your back end conversion rates in. So your lead to conversion rate. So if it's a lead gen client, like a plumber, how many leads do you need to get a sale? And what are your margins? And so on. And also for e-commerce, there's return rate, return customer rate, sorry, as in returns, not return customer, and margins and profitability. So you can get all that data. So you've got your ad spend, you've got all your click metrics, but then you've got business metrics as well. And there is a month 1 and month 3, and month 2 is skipped because there's an assumption that by month 3 you're doing a better job. So the metrics improve a bit. And it just gives you that window into Google Ads plus business outcomes, and then what the future looks like. And it's just the perfect setup to pitch, for example, or to assist you with a client turning up saying, right, we're on a double the budget next month. And you're like, oh, what can we get out of that? Now, Google, to be fair to them, in recent years, I don't know when they actually did it, have included some additional conversion metrics that you can plumb into the forecaster. It's dramatically improved it, but there's still not back office business metrics. So my sheet is still very much helpful and useful for doing that.
Yeah, I think it is very easy to get caught up in the metrics that you can see in the Google Ads interface and spend a lot of time paying attention to that. And, in some cases, neglect what are we actually trying to achieve here for the business and what are the key outcomes that we're looking for. And I think, yeah, as you said, your sheet is a great way to keep those things in mind. When thinking about forecasting, I don't work hands-on in PPC myself, but if I was trying to do forecasting and I was working with a business which had a huge amount of seasonality where they do a lot more sales and certain times a year and less in other times a year, like I would just approach that and think, well, this is going to be a real headache now when I'm trying to do my predictions. So could you talk a little bit about seasonality, how you account for it, and what marketers should keep in mind when trying to do forecasting for a business that does experience a high degree of seasonality?
Yeah, really difficult without prior experience. So using past data is key, but using past data ahead, so looking at months ahead and trying to predict based on where you're going, not what last month did, for example, is pretty key. You made a really good point. A lot of marketers, myself included, back in the day, we're stuck too much in the Google Ads interface. We're thinking about ad metrics, but not outcomes, and this is more outcome focused. So seasonality is essentially very difficult. But one thing I would do is be very careful with under-egging and over-egging or over-promising, full stop, in projections. And what we used to like to do is essentially break it down into three segments. So low ball, would be nice, and then overperforming essentially. So when you do your forecast, you've got your current performance combined with last year's performance going into this quarter. And then you're looking, right, based on where we've been for the past year or the past 3 quarters, are we trending up or down? Is our conversion rate up or down? Is our AOV up or down? Because this is typically e-commerce. It's not, it's a lot easier for service businesses to just bump their budgets because they haven't got stock and changeable stock and stuff. It's like if you're installing Windows, you've either got men available to do the job and women. 2025, I have to be careful. People available to do the bloody work, or you haven't. Your calendar's either booked or it isn't. So it's really quite straightforward. You don't really need to project that kind of thing. Whereas e-com, it's more about the projection. So it's essentially where have we been, where are we trending, how does that look? Are we 5% up, 20% up, 50% up? Is there a business demand, i.e., margins are squeezed, so we need to actually spend a bit less but get more efficiency or higher ROAS? And that will dictate where you set your baseline essentially. So going ahead, if nothing changes, run the numbers. Like the assumption is we'll do similar to what we're doing now, conversion rates, AOVs. Look at last year. Oh, okay, there was a bump of X. Apply that. There's your baseline. If nothing improves, that's where we're going to head. And then then this is where it becomes a bit more of an art than a science. You've got to use your experience of this business, this client, this product, this market to understand, well, what's realistic as a step change? Did we try a step change last quarter or last year? How did that go? It's a lot easier when you've got experience of it. When you've got no experience of it, it's very tricky because the business, of course, is going to say, well, we just want to double. We want more. We want more. And what you can, I have actually got another checklist, but it's not available publicly, but it allows you to break down. Maybe I should make it available publicly. I'll think about it after the call. It allows you to break down that additional spend and those additional conversions and give you essentially a ratio of how greater the performance needs to be to achieve that. Because what some people miss is that they've got this block of spend and this block of conversions. So they've got their inputs and outputs. And then the client turns up and says, oh, we want X, but it's actually greater than what they've got now. So their efficiency now would have to go up and up and up to spend more and get even more conversions. And some people miss that. It's like a higher expectation when actually it should be the reverse, because it's not exponential. Actually, performance will most likely taper down, not up. So you spend more and you get less, unless you are very small, a small fish in your pond, in your market. If you're spending quite hard already, then typically when you start really pushing it, your return on ad spend actually starts to crush and starts to go down. But then
Is that because of the demand curve and you kind of hit the demand ceiling and then there's like a diminishing returns after that point, or is it because of just CPC inflation and Google steadily over time CPC is going up?
it's a product. It's a supply and demand. So simply, if let's say you're spending at 20%, 30% of the available impressions, you are literally you are cherry picking because you're not trying to go flat out. And the auction system, the bidding system understands that as well. And if you've got a budget that's, let's say it's £1,000 a week, but the market's got 50 grand available, then the bidding system can be really selective for you and go, oh, we'll just cherry pick that conversion. We'll have that one. We'll have that one. Your budget spent, done. Whereas if someone's got to spend that full 50 grand because they're a much bigger business, there's less cherry picking. And then it comes down to supply and demand, where they need every click and every customer, regardless of if that customer is going to spend a penny or a million pennies. And that's where the efficiency gets crushed, because it's like, well, we just need more, regardless of their value. And that typically starts to happen when you're bidding in the like 80, 90% impression share region. That's when you really see ROAS start to fall away.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me on to the next question that I had there, which was about the impression share that you bring into the forecasting sheet, and you've kind of described it somewhat in your answer just now. But could you unpack why adjusting impression share is so important when it comes to predicting spend and forecasting?
Yeah, I can't remember what I did on the sheet because I'm a true professional, but I believe it's arbitrary. It's not algorithmic. It's not clever. It's just an arbitrary percentage bump. And I believe at 10 and 20% of impression share, I drop the assumed cost per clicks, 20% and then 10%. And then on the other end, it's the same. It might be more. So if you're at 90% impression share, then I think I put like 30 or 50% on the bids. Essentially, that is just to more illustrate that at the extreme ends, you're playing a different game. So when you're at the low end, because for whatever reason, you've got a smaller budget, smaller stock level, you're just a smaller business, then you actually get to swim in a lot shallower waters, shall we say. And it's a bit easier because you're not having to push hard into that top impression share. And just for someone listening that doesn't really understand the impression share, essentially it's the available people viewing ads. So an impression is when someone sees an advert. And that is not infinite. That's a finite thing. That's literally people on their phones, tablets, computers, searching for your thing, looking for your thing. That isn't, it's finite. So once that runs out, you can't spend anymore. And that's when the auction starts to get bloody expensive, when you get right to that tippy top and Google's like, well, you need the click, you want the conversion, you got to spend for it because we're running out of them, essentially, in layman's terms.
Nice. Supply demand, fairly straightforward there, but it does get quite technical. When I start to think about this, I'm like, oh, hold on, but do I fully understand?
I've
Well,
done a
we'll
video on it, James.
I need to go check out that video,
It's
Ed, and
I can't remember what it's something about scaling bidding, but it does explain it very well. And a lot of people have said that video helps explain sort of the scaling of the auction on my
just
YouTube.
on that note, also, Ed, you have some good videos on your YouTube channel about copywriting as well. So I should have
Do
plugged
I?
those at the intro when we were discussing your copywriting skill. But if you go to Ed's YouTube channel and you browse through there, I think there's at least one video that I saw about copywriting. It might have been an interview that you'd done
There's a
with someone.
few. And
Yeah.
Ashwin, who's essentially he's head marketer at God Tier Ads, he's done a few as well because he's very good at the copy and strategy side. So yeah, there are. I mean, it's mainly Google Ads and running Google Ads as an agency or a freelancer stuff, but copywriting is very much part of that now. Unless you just get the AI to do it and churn out some slop for you and don't skill yourself up a bit.
Yeah, we've spoke about the dangers of relying too heavily on ChatGPT on this podcast before. So yeah, do
Yeah.
check out our episode of Fred Valleys if you want to hear Fred's thoughts on how to use AI effectively and make sure that you've still got some oversight and input over what you're putting out there to the public. But to bring it back to forecasting, one of the other elements that often goes overlooked is remarketing, and something we do a lot of here at Lunio, and most other businesses do a lot of remarketing as well. But when it comes to forecasting, sometimes that doesn't get the attention it deserves. So could you talk about remarketing and how marketers should account for that when they're looking ahead and projecting for the future?
Yeah, it often gets forgotten. I think it's the problem. So if you're a local services and that type of business, you probably don't need to do remarketing. Unfortunately, the way that privacy concerns have, I say unfortunately, that's from a marketer's perspective, but because of privacy, cookie crushing, and etc., the audience have become the audiences essentially have to be a lot larger to be effective for remarketing, which sort of crowds out the smaller advertisers. So don't worry about it. But then for advertisers that do need to remarket, a lot of it now is captured by PMax, and that's a lot of it is hidden in PMax. So you can run a PMax and see this lovely low CPA or high ROAS and be like, ah, it's doing a wonderful job. But then when you actually look at what it's doing and you run one of the many scripts out there that will give you the report, and Google is finally putting the report in now, which splits out by platform and placement. So YouTube and so on, and display it. And then you can actually see where it's spending, and you'll often see it's spending all on search. The only thing that's converting, is search. It's not display or YouTube. And then you go and check the search categories, and it's pretty much all your brand. Then you are essentially your PMax is spending money on remarketing without you knowing it. So that I said it at 10%, but for many people it could be higher. Again, it depends on what you're running. So this is the problem. There's all this nuance, and I know it's annoying. but it just comes with experience. So it's like, okay, well, I know that I'm running a dedicated DSA with an RLSA, talking out acronyms now, for my remarketing, and I give that
I'm
5%.
struggling, Ed. I'm struggling.
I'm sorry, keep your eyes open. So, which is a strategy that what's the word? I don't know if I came up with it, but I've talking about it a long, long time ago. Essentially, it's audiences in DSA, and they are set as targeting. They're your audiences, so it remarkets on search using DSA. It's really easy because you don't have to do any keywords or anything. And you might give that 5%, 10%, whatever, and then you have to attribute that in your projections. But I'd say like 10%'s a okay number. It's a ballpark number. All it's going to do is bump your projections up in terms of spend, because if you think about it, you pay for the click in the first place. So remarketing does feel sometimes like a bit of a tax in that sense. I'm not saying don't do it, but it will push your projections up in terms of spend. You have to remember that.
And because of what you described there about PMax might be doing a significant amount of retargeting activity that you might not be aware of, or remarketing, are you of the school that you should try to always exclude brand from PMax and catch it in a separate like shopping campaign or search campaign? Is that what you tend to do?
Yeah, unless I see display in particular converting well, which is rare, but it does happen. And sometimes YouTube, especially if they've got dedicated YouTube videos, then for most people, the simplest thing to do is neg the brand and have a dedicated brand campaign, because then you can monitor it. You can see how much you're spending or not. You can introduce vouchers and coupons into your branded campaign in their own ad group, so you can control that messaging. And Andrew Lolk has joined me on God Tier Ads. He's dealing with the e-commerce side. And he would go another step further and just say, don't use PMax, just use standard shopping, because it works. And it does. Standard shopping still works gangbusters. So if you're in e-commerce and you see these reports and you see PMax crapping out spend in YouTube and just display and not converting, don't be scared about going back to standard shopping, because standard shopping doesn't have that issue and will often drive up your ROI as a result. So PMax is more, it's a easy button, and also it's for scale, for larger e-commerce brands, definitely. I mean, it helps with scale, but it can fart its guts out when it comes to platform spend and spread of that spend. Excuse that metaphor, sorry.
No, it's all right. And then one of the main rationales for people using PMax over standard shopping, I think that was kind of gotten rid of by Google late last year, where PMax had the priority in auctions over standard shopping, and that has since changed.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit of a cynic. I don't even know if they tell us the truth on this. So I don't worry too much. You can run them side by side, and you can run so you might want to run your best sellers, for example, or a sale in PMax, because you can put visuals alongside it. So if you've got some, if you've got some products that are going gangbusters and they are 10% of your revenue, which can happen, like a subcategory of product could be selling that well, then it deserves PMax, because you can give it a bit of love. You can give it some imagery and proper assets, even its own videos and so on. But to do that for an entire shop is very difficult. And then it doesn't really play into the strengths of PMax. So priorities or not, I go where the performance is, to be honest with you. And standard shopping will often outperform. And you just get to see what it's doing. It's a bit easier just to see. And I know the promise of PMax being fully automated was the thing. And now it's part of the Pound Pack, where everything's fully automated, and you don't. But ironically, I'm part of the PPC survey. I sponsor it, and this year on year, the results have swayed towards marketers finding Google Ads more difficult. And I think it's because of all these bloody automations. And the assumption is that it takes away work, but actually it's starting to create work. So shifting back to the fundamentals is not going to hurt you.
There you go. Standard shopping, worth paying attention to and looking into if you are not a huge advertiser and you want a bit more control. We've talked about it in the interview, and you mentioned yourself that, like, in theory, all the automation and AI that Google's bringing in is meant to make things easier, but as you said, oftentimes that can kind of complicate things and make things harder to understand what's going on and what do I need to change to make a difference here. So with all the AI advancements, do you think that the need to kind of do this due diligence on manual forecasting is going to increase over time as things become increasingly automated? And we're not that far away from like a keywordless future of PPC now, and it is forecasting in this way just going to become impossible? And what's your thoughts about where we're heading and how that will affect our ability to predict and how important that is?
I so I on the whole automation thing, the AI thing, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so we shouldn't really worry about it too much, otherwise we'll live in perpetual fear. But I am really firm with people that they should be understanding what they're doing before they're automating all this stuff anyway. So if you get to the point where you're just using AI to do your forecasts, and you don't know why, and can you therefore trust the output? Do you know what's going into it? The whole thing of losing thinking and thought and critical thinking is frustrating for me. Not because I'm a dinosaur. I use AI pretty much every day, but it's because I know what the inputs are. It's no what good copying someone's prompt off fucking LinkedIn and then just regurgitating the same shite. Like, you've got just know what you're doing and then automate it. And yeah, it makes you slower to start with, but you'll reap the reward because you'll understand why you're doing it. We're going to get into a weird situation, a very weird world, if we don't need to forecast, which we won't, and we only add budget and trajectory into the ad platform like Meta and Google Ads. So we just say what we want and give it money. How does that work? Because if that works, then everyone will do the same, but supply and demand is still a thing. It's still there. And there's only so much thing that Google or Meta or whoever can give back to us. So unfortunately, what AI might actually do is drive up costs even more because the automation's so good that more people apply budget to it, and therefore it runs dry because there's only so many people who want to buy your thing or that need your service or that want to sign up to your SaaS tool. I've got a SaaS tool. They probably won't exist at this point. Sorry, SaaS owners. Uh, but never mind. Robot repairman or woman or something. There's a future for you. So yeah, it's very difficult, and I don't know what that future looks like, and I don't worry about it too much, and nor
Yeah,
should you.
yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. And just I was looking at your LinkedIn page, I think it was yesterday, and just on your point there about the importance to really understand what you're doing. And I think one of the first lines in the post you wrote was like, if you're commenting ROAS on the semi-coherent ramblings of an 18-year-old social media guru, you're gonna be disappointed. And I think like there is this constant appetite for hacks and shortcuts and just get me the way that's gonna get there. And it's like there is no getting around the fact that to do this well and to master something, it does require time. It does require effort. Like you need to pay attention to what you're doing, and you can't really speed run your way to that over the course of a month or a week.
It
Yeah.
it's yeah, the gurus have got a lot uh, to blame for on this one because I saw a Facebook ad. I won't name and shame the person, but they're like master Google Ads in 24 hours. And it's just like, it's the wrong message to someone new or young coming into the industry. Just because you want to sell your sloppy course product, you douche. Don't fake, like, I tell people, my product's not for beginners. It's actually quite difficult because there's so much going on in it. But if you need a toolbox, a toolkit, like an operating system, then it's there to help you. But it's not a training course that's going to essentially do all the work for you. And I'm not pretending that it's easy. There's certain parts that can be easy, don't get me wrong, but if you want to be like top performer, it's like this is a sport. It's you've got to put the time in,
Yeah.
and until you want it to be a sport for as long as it or a game, whatever you call it, for as long as it possibly can, because at the point that you don't need to put the reps in to be good, we're all fucked, because that
Yeah.
means the automation's so good we are irrelevant. So don't wish that away. Hard work and mastering something is really rewarding.
Well, we will leave it there. That's the takeaway note is do the work, and there's no getting around doing the work. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today, Ed. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention or let people know about before we wrap up?
Yeah, God tier ads. it's if you're into Google Ads or you're working in Google Ads or whatever, it's a framework and a community, but the community's getting a massive upgrade. It's not a training course. You don't sit 50 hours through theory and fluff. It's literally actionable checklists and so on, because I hate traditional training courses. They are not productive. Sitting there watching people talk on video like we're doing for hours on end. It's so difficult to extract the information. You feel busy, but you've achieved nothing. It's like Netflix. You've sat there for 10 hours watching a series. You've not achieved anything, have you? Just eating a load of biscuits and popcorn. God, I sound really judgy. Sorry. This is why half the people hate me. But yeah, so the framework is about action, taking action. And then each bit is explained. I want you to do a bit of critical thinking, but it explains the why as well, why we're doing this. And failing that, yeah, God Tier Ads community is coming very soon. And that'll be the place to be. Cool kids.
Go check it out, join the community. And thank you again, Ed. It's been a pleasure.
And you. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of the Paid Media Lab. Thanks for tuning in. If you found it helpful, hit the subscribe button to get the next episode as soon as it's released. Subscribing costs nothing and it helps us bring you the best possible guests in the next season. And if you want more advice on how to boost your return on ad spend, head to lunio.ai where you'll find loads more free tools, resources, and guides. Lastly, if you know any other marketers who benefit from the tips in this episode, you can do them and us a favor by sending them the link to the show. That's all for this one, and I'll see you in the next episode.